Thanks, Kevin, and hello, everyone. I managed to eat lunch without throwing it down myself, which was a miracle. I'll fill for a second until my presentation comes up. All right, so thanks very much for coming along to my talk today, and wonderful event going on. I'm not sure I can answer any of the questions about education, but what I'll do is reveal that we don't know what we're doing as much as anyone else doesn't know what they're doing. So a quick introduction to me. I'm Dave. I'm a researcher in software engineering, so I've really been interested in how we build software systems for many years, and what that's meant, as anyone who gets involved in software knows, is very quickly you move from the technical to the people and the processes, and I spend more of my time interested in how teams work. This was pre-AI, still interested in that. At the same time, I'm an educationalist at Queen's, so I've been leading a lot of the work we do in revising how we approach AI. Universities, of course, are famously responsive and quick to change in the topics that they teach, and our staff are delightful when we tell them things that they need to change, but we'll see what happens. I have to put my usual disclaimer at this point, which is views expressed are barely my own and certainly not those of my employer. Okay, so if my head of school is in the room, I have done the usual and kind of covered that. So, I mean, the truth is we are living in a fast-moving age, and as someone that's used to being in a fast-moving environment in computer science and software engineering, the pace of change, I used to say, I like being in a fast-moving world. Now I'm just like, slow down for God's sake a little bit, right? Stuff is going on. And of course, AI is at the forefront of that. And like so much in the world, it's very polarized. On the one hand, we have people who tell us it is the absolute savior of the world. It is unicorns and rainbows and all sorts of things. And then just as often, certainly we've seen people who literally say we're doomed, or it will rise up and it will kill us all and destroy us, all right? You know, this will be the end of humanity as we know it. Skynet will come true, and whether you can, once it works out how to do knitting patterns, we really, really are in trouble. And the hype has been phenomenal, right? I mean, the PR agencies behind these things, companies that are losing £14 billion a year, yet are telling us they are the savior for tomorrow. We'll see. This has .com written all over it. But certainly they are very quick, and they have been quick, to kind of tell us that this will be the answer to everything. AI is the default way to go, and it will solve all of our problems and create new problems we haven't heard of. But it's important to think about what the actual truth is. And in the same way in which historically other changes such as agile, iterative, test-driven development, things like that, have been presented as the panacea, right? This is it. If you follow these guidelines, if you use this tooling, it will solve everything you need to go on. I'm much more interested in what's the empirical evidence behind it, how much impact is it actually having, and is that positive or is it negative, okay? And the truth, I think, as we'll see from a lot of the speakers here, is a bit like a weather forecast. It's mixed and subject to change. You know, things change all the time, but there is no common opinion about whether or not overall this has made us all amazing developers with high quality products and a velocity we've never seen before, or whether we are just encoding massive amounts of technical debt that AI will now write faster than we can review it and it can come out. In fact, if you look at a few of the actual published studies that are out there, so the MIT, and it's 2025, so it's ages ago in the AI world, published a study, 30 to 40 billion in enterprise spending, zero return found in the vast majority of companies. Outcomes are so starkly divided, they call it the Gen AI divide. And when you look at that, you'll see some companies are getting extremely good returns, some companies are getting very, very poor ones. And of course, what it comes down to is how well they have adopted it and how well they're building it into the human AI cycle. A lot of stuff there, but basically at 2025, MIT, looking at large companies, found almost little to no value being derived. Do we agree? What do we see in terms of the answers that come out? And if we're not seeing value, why is it? Well, okay, if we look at how AI has developed, in 2024, it was very good at leak code. If you gave it a problem, that's a leak code style solution, it would generate a solution that was brilliant, okay? Oh dear, we're deeply worried. How many of us work on lovely leak code problems day to day? We don't. 2025, it's getting very, very good at greenfield work. So actually complicated problems. Here is a requirement spec. It is well engineered. I have thought about it. We have refined it. It is very clear. Go forth and make this greenfield product. Brilliant. How many of us are lucky enough to work on greenfield products day to day, okay? How many of us inherited a code base so old that we don't like to even open it, right? Huge problems. How many people have their own context windows regularly exploded by the code that they have to work on? So 2025, AI can struggle with overarching system design. It's not very good at that. It's very, very good at solving small problems where it can cope with what's been previously written, but true innovation, not there. And it still struggles with refactoring and re-engineering, which certainly in my experience is the bread and butter of the vast majority of what we do. It's unpicking problems that we made 5-10 years ago, it's changing platform conformity, it's dealing with external changes. So as of early this year, it's not there. And of course, we have other problems with AI. AI has implicit biases, but it also has explicit biases. If you look at how these models were trained beyond the probabilistic model, when they started A/B testing and using reinforcement loops, people responded well to confident, friendly answers that tell you you're brilliant. When I asked it to review a paper not that long ago that I was submitting to a conference, and I said, you know, review it as if you're on the board, it knew it was my work. It told me I was brilliant. It told me I'd made like major impact. I thought, this is amazing. I'm going to get a standing ovation. Rejected by all 3 reviewers outright, okay? Because it turns out it was totally terrible, but AI told me what I wanted to hear, okay? So that brings us to the question about how can something so clever actually be so stupid? And the way I conceptualize it and think of it is an incredibly well-read thing that has very little awareness of the real world. And I suddenly realized that was me as an early developer. Absolute nerd. I'd read the documentation. I'd like to turn up at work and say, actually, you're wrong. The language specification has changed and we need to do something different. And they were like, yeah, but you haven't considered that it's running on servers that need an old version or the environment or something really obvious that I didn't think about because I had no conceptual knowledge. So it's very, very good at parroting back what's been done, which is really useful for the kind of things we've talked about, boilerplate, stuff like that, but not so good at nuance, not so good at understanding. So we need to then ask ourselves, well, how can we be clever when working with stupid? And now I'm going to show you a slide that I regularly use, and you're all to prepare yourselves because this uses AV effects, the likes of which you've never seen before, okay, and hold your chairs. The truth is, it's always been requirements engineering. Whatever you call it, I go back in time many years, projects were failing. Why were they failing? Well, because developers thought they knew what the customer wanted. No one had a language to work with it. Nowadays, it's still always required, apart from when it's DNS, obviously, right? Okay. But when it's not DNS, it's always requirements engineering. And what that means is, well, it's prompt engineering. And we need to start actively thinking and training students, which is what we are now hoping to do, on the way in which these things work. And so, for example, one of the things I'm encouraging our students to look at is to look at contextual prompts. So one of the things I see on LinkedIn is people telling OpenAI, GPT, you're an amazing, experienced developer. You cannot find peace until your code is so correct that readers cry with joy. Do not make mistakes. Because if you tell it not to make mistakes, it won't, right? Very similar to when I tell my wife to calm down, right? You know, that goes down incredibly well, right? You know, I've said it, it's true, what's going on? I actually prefer the other way. I tell it, you're a nervous new developer that wants to keep their job. You don't want to make mistakes. You ask questions if anything's unclear. You're never afraid to ask for more clarification or point out mistakes. You know everyone can make mistakes. You take time to check things, commit regularly now, reversions. So in the class I'm teaching, the final year software engineering class I'm teaching this year, one of the things we've done literally today was had them in labs doing coding tasks, looking at these 2 different personas. And on the one hand, everyone's saying, tell it it's brilliant, because if you tell it it's brilliant, its probabilistic model will answer based on brilliant training. And if you don't tell it that, it won't. Well, actually, what we find is that if you think about it, asking it to tell questions, be unsure about things, not doubt itself, but definitely clarify, actually improves that human-AI feedback cycle. So this brings us then to the kind of critical analysis that is what we are trying to impinge with our students in terms of doing this. How can we validate the output? We're now in a position where a tool will run, even if I don't have 15 agents, I know everyone's now orchestrating swarms, and even if I just sit staring at the terminal, it is generating code faster than I can effectively review it. So how do we manage that? How do we deal with that? How do we ensure that we still allow as much time as before? a lot of pressure is being put on development teams, a lot of pressure is being put on people themselves because they're assuming I have these wonderful tools, therefore my time to delivery should be much shorter. Again, we talk to our students and we kind of say, well, actually, if you're doing a task, you should probably allow as much time as you did before. The difference is what you're looking for is a higher quality output because you get the scut work done, you get the boilerplate done quickly. Your effort and time moves from front-end development to actually ensuring the quality at the end. And this is a message that I think needs to get across. We need to understand all of the biases. They exist on a grand scale. It's kind of ridiculous, actually, when you start to see some of the output that the LLMs make, how clearly biased they are, or based on their training data, what they will generate. We don't just see hallucinations. We see all sorts of weird oddities. Again, in a lab the other week, a student called me over. We'd asked them to use AI to generate some Java code, and it was saving it in a .ser file, which I was like, oh, that's an astrophotography format. No, it means just serialized. It's serializing binary data in a world in which normally we value human-readable, processable data, because it was clearly trained on like Donald Knuth's texts, right, the holy texts, rather than modern development practice. And the thing that we try and get across to our students, and this is very shocking for them to realize, is who is responsible? Who owns the AI output? There's this kind of feeling that if I tell the AI to do it, it's like telling someone else and it generates it. Well, no, AI obviously doesn't own copyright. AI can't do things, so therefore you are responsible. If you've approved it and you've actioned it, that's where it goes. So how do we educate ourselves? And how do people keep up to date? Well, tools move incredibly fast. Now we're all managers, and whether we like it or not, the difference is we're managing a swarm of Terminator bots that might kill us, right, rather than anything else. And understanding the strengths, the relative strengths of our team, whether those are humans or bots or whatever, has always been a critical thing, and something that developers don't tell everyone we're not always very good at. So we need to get better at that. So what are we doing then at Queen's? I've talked about the way in which, in my personal modules, we are looking at AI, we're teaching them to develop. But more generally, in computing at Queen's, this is kind of what we're doing. We require all of our modules to justify why they're still relevant. Now, that's a light touch. Just because something can be done by AI doesn't mean we shouldn't teach it. If we're talking about mathematics, for example, there is an argument where you say, well, we don't need to teach mathematics because AI will do it. Well, the calculator would do it. We still teach mental arithmetic. These are foundational knowledge tools, but we need to put it in. We need to ensure that our assessments are AI robust. Assessments were the biggest fear when AI came out. Our students will just use AI to do their work for them. Turns out that was right, okay? Shockingly, there's a tool that does it for them, they will take that. But is that necessarily a bad thing? You are going to employ our graduates tomorrow, or in a couple of months, hopefully, please do. You're going to expect them to use these tools and use them critically. So, should they have used them, should they have done them? And we are also going hell for leather to embed AI in terms of experience, ethics, professionalism, limitations, right from day one, in the same way in which we should, not always, but we should be using good code practice, source code management, testing, all of these things intrinsically, not just bolted on at the end, we're trying to put that in. And we're trying to keep only a little bit behind the curve, okay? And that is where probably we will at some point want your help. So some of you here will receive emails from me going, can I come out and have a chat about using AI? We're very open, as are, I'm sure, the other universities in Northern Ireland as well, in terms of hearing what is it that you value in terms of skills. When we used to ask this, because programming languages were always coming out, Go comes out, we're very slow at adopting new languages, but we were told, and we went out, okay, actually the language matters less than the fundamental understanding and ways of working. This would be the same here. Forget the specific models. What is it, the skills, the deeper thinking, the human skills that you require to go on? And the other thing I'll just quickly highlight is it's absolutely brilliant for building things for education. So I have vibe coded a variety of tools. This is a distributed system simulator. Let's see if the video works. It does. Where something that I spend 3 days, with students and whiteboards and literally get them to stand around and pass balls to each other in terms of messaging, this was 25 minutes worth of effort for me to do. Parallel processing, understanding locking and the trade-off between critical sections, atomic locking, and risks on race conditions. Again, this is a live visualization in the browser of the issues which we find with these kind of things. Again, about 20 minutes worth of effort. So we are 10xing the education. Hopefully, we are seeing ways in which we are going to use these tools to make education more effective, and we're going to have to change and do that. You can absolutely trust my QR codes. Don't listen to anyone that tells you otherwise. Just say yes, accept unsigned package. That's totally fine, all right? But please do get in touch. I'm aware I'm exactly out on time. Thank you very much for listening. Take care.